Before Mecca, March 1964. The white man is the devil. Integration is impossible. Separation is the only solution. Malcolm X, Nation of Islam spokesperson. After Mecca, May 1964. In the past, I have made sweeping indictments of all white people. I will never be guilty of that again. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. Malcolm X of Bristol Sue. What happened in those 21 days between March and May 1964? What did Malcolm X see in Mecca that completely reversed 12 years of beliefs? And why did this transformation guarantee his death? This video reveals the journey through Mecca that changed Malcolm forever. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslims who treated him as a brother. The Saudi prince who invited him to his palace. The white American who became his friend. The moment Malcolm realized that everything Elijah Muhammad had taught him was a lie. But this revelation came with a terrible cost. When Malcolm returned to America preaching racial unity instead of racial separation, the Nation of Islam couldn't allow him to live. Because if Malcolm was right about Mecca, then Elijah Muhammad was wrong about everything. And 400,000 followers might follow Malcolm instead. The journey to Mecca saved Malcolm's soul, but it guaranteed his body would be buried within a year. Subscribe now because the stories we're about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about Malcolm X. And we're just getting started. To understand what Malcolm X lost in Mecca, you need to understand what he believed before. Malcolm Little entered prison in 1946 as a street hustler and burglar. Then his brother introduced him to Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. The theology was simple but powerful. The myth of Yaqub, 6,000 years ago, a black scientist created white people through selective breeding. These white people were devils by nature, genetically incapable of doing good. The doctrine of separation. Integration was impossible because of white people's demonic nature. Black people needed complete separation. Separate schools, businesses, communities, and eventually a separate nation. For Malcolm, this theology was liberation. It explained his suffering and gave him purpose. For 12 years, Malcolm X was the nation's most effective minister. He built temples, recruited thousands, and preached one message with absolute conviction. White people are devils. Separation is salvation. Malcolm believed this with every fiber of his being. His father had been murdered by white supremacists. His mother institutionalized. His siblings scattered. The nation's theology made sense of this suffering. Even after leaving the nation in March 1964 over Elijah Muhammad's sexual abuse of young women, Malcolm still carried its racial beliefs. He still saw the world in black and white. He still believed true brotherhood between races was impossible. What Malcolm didn't know, in 3 weeks he would meet a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslim from America who would treat him with more genuine brotherhood than he'd experienced from some black people. That encounter would shatter 12 years of certainty in a single moment. April 13, 1964, Malcolm X boarded a plane at JFK Airport bound for Cairo. He was 38 years old, newly independent from the nation, and uncertain about his future. Dr. Mahmoud Youssef Shawarbi, an Islamic scholar in New York, had given Malcolm a letter of introduction to Saudi Arabia's Grand Mufti. "Go to Mecca," Dr. Shawarbi had said. "See what Islam really teaches." Malcolm hesitated. The nation had always taught that Mecca was corrupted, controlled by white Arabs who looked down on black people. But something in Malcolm hungered for real truth. When Malcolm arrived in Cairo on April 14, he was shocked. "You could sit on a bus with a white man, and no one looks twice," he wrote to his wife Betty. "In shops, restaurants, everywhere. People of all colors are treated with the same respect." On April 18, Malcolm flew to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. At the airport, Saudi officials stopped him. They had never seen an African-American Muslim before and questioned his credentials. Malcolm was detained for hours. Then a young Saudi official named Muhammad Abdul Aziz recognized him. "You are Malcolm X, the American Muslim leader. I have read about you." Within hours, Muhammad arranged for Malcolm to stay in a Jeddah hotel and assigned him a personal guide. This guide would change Malcolm's life. What Malcolm didn't know, the man sleeping in the room next to his was a white American Muslim from Seattle. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed man who, according to everything Malcolm had believed for 12 years, should have been a devil. Tomorrow morning, Malcolm would have breakfast with this man, and everything would begin to crumble. April 1964, morning in Jeddah. As Malcolm prepared for Fajr prayer, he saw a man in the hallway. Blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin, unmistakably white. The man smiled warmly and said in Arabic, "Assalamu alaikum, brother." Malcolm froze. His Nation of Islam training screamed suspicion. But the man extended his hand. "I'm Dr. Omar Azam, from Seattle, Washington. Malcolm X, I've read about you. Please join me for breakfast." And Malcolm found himself sitting across a breakfast table from a white man, something he had sworn never to do. "Islam has no color barrier," Dr. Azam explained. "The Prophet Muhammad said, a white person has no superiority over a black person, nor does a black person have superiority over a white person, except by piety and good action." Malcolm had never heard this teaching. The nation had never mentioned it. "Here in Mecca," Dr. Azam continued, "you will see true Islam. You will pray alongside Arabs, Africans, Asians, Europeans, all as equals. Color means nothing, only your heart matters." Malcolm felt something crack inside him. Over 3 hours, they talked about Islam, race, and America. Malcolm realized this white man understood his struggle better than some black people he knew. "The problem isn't white skin," Dr. Azam explained. "The problem is white supremacy, and that system can be dismantled. I grew up in a racist family, but Islam taught me that my racist thoughts were sins I could repent from." Malcolm had never heard a white person talk with such honesty and genuine desire for brotherhood. That night, Malcolm wrote in his diary, "Today I had breakfast with a white man, and he treated me like a brother, not tolerating me, genuinely loving me as an equal. I don't know what to do with this experience. Everything I believe says this shouldn't be possible, but it just happened." That night, Dr. Azam gave Malcolm a book containing the Prophet Muhammad's final sermon. "Read this before you enter Mecca tomorrow." Malcolm read it that night. When he reached the section about racial equality, he wept. For 12 years, he had followed a version of Islam that contradicted Islam's fundamental teaching. April 20, 4 a.m. Malcolm, dressed in the ihram, simple white garments worn by all pilgrims, boarded a bus to Mecca. The bus was packed with pilgrims from every corner of Earth. "I was no longer Malcolm X, the controversial black nationalist," he later wrote. "I was just another Muslim pilgrim." When Malcolm first saw the Kaaba, he felt his knees weaken. "There were tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world," Malcolm wrote. "They were of all colors, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. But we were all participating in the same ritual, displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood that my experiences in America had led me to believe never could exist." Malcolm joined the Tawaf, circling the Kaaba 7 times. He walked shoulder to shoulder with a Swedish convert, a Nigerian Muslim, a Saudi sheikh, a Malaysian businessman, and a white American from Boston, all moving together, all equal before God. During the standing at Arafat, Malcolm stood among 2 million Muslims, a sea of humanity that defied every racial category. "People of all races, colors from all over the world coming together as one," he wrote. "It has proved to me the power of the one God." That night, Malcolm barely slept. Everything he had believed was crumbling, but it was liberating. He wrote, "I have eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, and slept on the same rug while praying to the same God with fellow Muslims whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. We were truly all the same brothers, because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitude." On April 23rd, Malcolm received an invitation from Prince Faisal, the future king of Saudi Arabia. What happened in that meeting would give Malcolm his final understanding, but it would also guarantee that when he returned to America, the Nation of Islam would mark him for death. April 23, 1964, Prince Faisal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud requested Malcolm's company for dinner. When Malcolm arrived, Prince Faisal embraced him like a brother. "Your work in America has reached us here. You are doing important work." Over dinner, Malcolm confessed, "Your Highness, I have been teaching that white people are devils. But here I have seen white Muslims who embody true Islam. I am confused." Prince Faisal smiled gently. "Brother Malcolm, the Prophet Muhammad was sent to eliminate racism. The first muezzin was Bilal ibn Rabah, a black African slave. The Prophet freed him and elevated him to show that value comes from character, not color. The racism you have experienced in America is not because those people are white. It is because they have abandoned moral principles. A true Christian should not be racist. A true Muslim cannot be racist. It contradicts our faith." Then Prince Faisal said, "You have the potential to be a bridge between oppressed black people and the broader Muslim world, between different races united under justice. But you cannot be that bridge if you carry the same sickness, racism, that you are fighting." Malcolm felt tears forming. "How do I tell my followers I was wrong for 12 years? "You tell them the truth," Prince Faisal replied. "The truth is always difficult, but it is always necessary." Prince Faisal gave Malcolm 2 gifts, a personal Quran inscribed for Brother Malcolm, "May your journey for truth never end," and an official letter declaring Malcolm a legitimate Muslim and guest of the Saudi royal family. As Malcolm left, he understood his mission wasn't to separate races. His mission was to separate oppressed people from their oppressors, regardless of race. Justice, not race, would be his new principle. Malcolm began writing letters from Mecca, admitting, "I have been wrong," but copies were being sent to Elijah Muhammad by NOI spies. With each letter proclaiming racial unity, Elijah's anger grew. The countdown to assassination had begun. Between April 20th and 25, Malcolm wrote 15 letters documenting his transformation. To Betty, April 20th, "Never have I witnessed such sincere hospitality and spirit of true brotherhood as is practiced by people of all colors here in this holy land." To his assistant, April 21, "What I have seen has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns and to toss aside some of my previous conclusions." To the press, April 23, "The true Islam has shown me that a blanket indictment of all white people is as wrong as when whites make blanket indictments against all blacks." Unsent letter, April 24, found in Betty's papers after her death. "Betty, I don't know who I am anymore. Everything I believed is wrong. I preached hatred, but how do I admit this? How do I face thousands who followed me? What if they hate me for it?" Final letter, April 25, "I have eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, and slept on the same rug with fellow Muslims, whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. We were truly all the same brothers." These letters were published in American newspapers. The mainstream press celebrated Malcolm X softens on race, but within the Nation of Islam, the reaction was fury. Elijah Muhammad declared, "Malcolm has been deceived and must be punished." Louis Farrakhan wrote, "Such a man as Malcolm is worthy of death." On May 21, 1964, Malcolm returned to America. At JFK Airport, he told reporters, "I am not a racist. I am against every form of racism, including the racism I once practiced." Within hours, death threats arrived. Within months, his house would be firebombed. Within a year, he would be dead. Malcolm returned facing an impossible situation. He had experienced genuine transformation and now believed in racial unity, but he had 400,000 nation members who still believed the old message, an FBI working to destroy him, and a former organization that wanted him dead. Malcolm tried to navigate carefully. In speeches, he emphasized, "I'm not advocating integration. I'm advocating brotherhood. There's a difference," he explained. "The white people I met in Mecca had removed racism from their hearts, but most white people in America haven't. So we still need black self-determination, but we're open to working with any white person who proves through actions, not words, that they oppose racism." It was too nuanced. White liberals thought Malcolm was still too radical. Black nationalists thought he had sold out. The nation thought he was a traitor. The FBI thought he was dangerous regardless. Malcolm found himself isolated. In October 1964, his house was firebombed, while his wife and 4 daughters slept inside. The message was clear. The nation wanted him dead. Malcolm became fatalistic. In December 1964, he said, "It is a time for martyrs now, and if I am to be one, it will be for the cause of brotherhood." On February 14, 1965, 1 week before his assassination, Malcolm stated, "There will be a clash between those who want freedom and justice and those who want to continue exploitation. But it won't be based on color. It will be based on whether you're willing to fight for justice." This was Malcolm's final evolution, from racial nationalism to universal justice. On February 24, 1965, Malcolm walked onto the stage at the Audubon Ballroom. He was exhausted. Death threats came daily, but his message was finally clear. Justice, not race. Unity, not separation. He began, "Assalamu alaikum," a disturbance, shouts, then gunshots. 21 bullets. Malcolm died at 3:30 p.m., exactly 10 months after returning from Mecca. The journey that saved his soul had cost him his life. Malcolm X's assassination on February 24, 1965 was a tragedy, but his transformation ensured his legacy would transcend the narrow nationalism he once preached. Today, Malcolm is remembered not for his "white people are devils" phase, but for his evolution, for his willingness to admit he was wrong, for his courage to embrace universal justice. The letters from Mecca are taught in universities worldwide as examples of intellectual honesty and spiritual growth. The autobiography of Malcolm X is one of the most influential books of the 20th century. Malcolm's journey teaches us: 1. Growth requires courage to admit you were wrong. Malcolm chose truth over comfort. 2. Transformation is possible at any age. Malcolm was 38 when he completely reversed his worldview. 3. Real change comes from experience. Malcolm didn't change through debate. He changed through experiencing genuine brotherhood. 4. Standing for truth can cost everything. Malcolm knew his transformation might cost his life. He spoke truth anyway. 5. Your legacy is determined by where you end, not where you start. We remember Malcolm for where he ended, not where he began. In his final days, Malcolm said, "I did many things as a Muslim that I'm sorry for now. I was a zombie then, hypnotized and pointed in a direction." But he also said, "If I can die having brought any light, having exposed any meaningful truth that will help destroy the racist cancer in America, then all credit is due to Allah. Only the mistakes have been mine." The journey to Mecca destroyed Malcolm X's beliefs, but it saved his soul, and that saved soul changed the world. Malcolm X had the courage to admit he spent 12 years teaching something wrong. Could you do that? Could you publicly admit your deeply held beliefs were mistaken? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is say, "I was wrong and now I'm going to do better." Malcolm did that, and it cost him his life. But it also gave him immortality. Write your thoughts in the comments.